and by the way, I'm not against anything being open for that, is that the ability to find trusted sources actually takes too much work. I think, there was a lot of conversation about Facebook, which is an amazing utility. I'm on it every day. My kids are on it every day. But it was built on a very simple principle, is that you friended people that you knew and you liked. If you have 14,000 friends on Facebook, probably the advice you're going to get from that circle isn't going to be exactly right. The second one is that the invisible becomes visible. This is one of the most compelling elements, that the ability to surface how communities work, how information is connected to each other, and we heard some of this in presentations earlier today, is an enormous change. Relevance versus completeness. You only need a good answer. You don't need all of the answers. Timeliness is very important, and then I'll talk about this from push from pull. So the trusted versus untrusted. Anybody in the audience familiar with the search engine Blecko? Okay, I recommend you take a look at Blecko. I spoke with the CEO before I left. I told him I'm going to talk about Blecko at Thinking Digital. This is great. You want me to FedEx you a T-shirt so everybody will know. Blecko is the first challenge to search since Google wiped out everything before. And they've done a very simple approach to this, and you can see some of this on the chart here. Blecko establishes human context back into search. So meaning they use something, their concept is the idea of what they call a slash tag. The ability to put human context, think about it as Google meets Wikipedia. So when you search on an item using Blecko, you would say Thinking Digital, and I can go / Herb Kim. And it'll give me only the searches related to that. And it'll give you a much smaller number of it. You can, and obviously, just like Wikipedia, if somebody puts in bad information, you can go and challenge it and change it. They're putting human beings back into the center of what we think is the most important utility in information gathering, which is search. But being able to make this transition is very, very significant. They have about 500,000 users today. They're in beta. My prediction, we're going to see a lot more of this. Putting trust back into when you ask questions is very important. Second area in the area of trusted versus trusted, if you're not familiar, what I'm showing you is a nodal diagram from Nicholas Christakis. Nicholas Christakis is a doctor who works out of Harvard. He is actually, if you don't know him, is the father of social networking, not Mark Zuckerberg. He invented the concept of social networking in the area of medicine. And what we learned, and then what this chart shares with you here, is he used Facebook to determine people's choices in music. And he figured out that if your friends like the Killers, and you're friends of your friends, you're more likely to like it, right? Versus other forms of music. So we know that there's aggregation of that, because you say, hey, what are you listening to? Hey, let me borrow let me borrow it. Oops, did I say there are people in the music industry here? Right? And that's how things move along. So trust is a very key component. The other part is around how the invisible becomes visible. This is another nodal diagram from Nicholas Christakis. Nicholas got very famous a couple of years ago for a really bad reason. He told you that your friends are making you obese. So we heard a little bit about some of the science. But if your friends are obese, you're more likely to be obese. So if my friend Bill is obese, I have X%. If his friend is, and so on and so forth. Even more than my wife, than my spouse. The ability to take this information and surface it and make those connections together is one of the most powerful tools we have in commerce, in medicine, and actually in work. And we're going to start to see people building more and more technology that allows you to surface this. Now this is so you have to have all these things, by the way, in sequence. The ability to do something, for example, through Facebook is interesting, but not if there are 14,000 friends. If you have 50 friends and they're connected, it's going to be much more powerful. The other one is the area of learning suggestion engines, and I heard somebody reflect this talking about Netflix. So one of the problems today is when you're searching for something is that nobody has your individual context. There was actually, I think somebody used the Amazon recommendation engine. So if I type in garden hose, somebody might say batteries connected to it because one of the models might be that. And it's not very contextual. What Netscape actually did a couple of years ago is they had a contest. They actually had $1 million prize for the people who built the algorithms to build the learning suggestion engines. Learning suggestion engines are going to be the most powerful tools in information management that are going to be around because they're going to map to who you are. And the best one actually comes out of the music industry in the area of Pandora. Pandora has a 400 genome sequencing model for picking your choice in music. And you do it by saying like, don't like, don't like, don't like. But they're using the same type of model that Craig Ventnor used when mapping the human genome. So very, very powerful use of making it much more specific to you. And you know this because after, if you use something like Pandora for, a week or two, pretty soon it's like, oh, that's pretty good, right? And by the way, if you're in the broadcast business, you have a real problem when things like Pandora make their way, because it's going to be much more about individuals. Just in time. This doesn't exist yet, so I'm using an example of something. So one of the things that we know is that information that comes to us basically last in is first out. So the way that people process things is that they will want something at the time. The next generation of technologies that's going to take us over is the idea of contextual timeliness. So if I come to the Thinking Digital conference and I check in on Facebook or Foursquare or the Wall or whatever you want, it'll tell me who's around, right? It's pretty rudimentary. What it doesn't tell me is, do we have a business relationship? Should we have a business relationship? Did somebody in my company call on you before that? Does it go back to my information systems and do that? So the concept of just in time married to individual context is going to probably be what I think is kind of the fourth wave of next generation information and motion technologies. Then the last area is push versus pull. So my core background is I'm a networking guy. I've worked in the networking industry for a long time. And if you think about how information networks work, they work very simply in the old days, they work from the center out, right? It was a publishing model, right? It's what mainframe computing does. It's what central information sources do. And basically, everything comes back to the hub that goes out into the spokes. Over the last 20 years, we've actually become a lot more decentralized, right? In computing, that's called client-server. But it's really that information has actually moved out to more of the peripheries, but it lives within that network. My friend John Hagel from Deloitte has written a lot about this. The next generation of information system is going to take information and people and allow that to become both more distributed as well as more connected at the same time. The question will be is if there's 300 of us here today and we've learned something from each other, how does that continue? How does that web continue afterwards? How do you take edge in innovation and bring it to different areas? That model doesn't exist, right? If you're looking to build next generation information technology, figure out how you can make a purely distributed information network connect up, because it's a very, very powerful set of capabilities. So I have a concept for something that I call the 7 box. By the way, I'm very big on 7. 7 things in your brain, 7 days a week. 7 numbers in the phone number, 7 archangels in the Bible. This number 7 actually has some meaning. So I have the concept of the idea of a 7 box. What happens if you could take all of those technologies that I just talked about, contextual and timely connections, distributed information networks, learning suggestion engines, other forms of contextual information, and bring that together for the 7 things that matter in your life, right? Your work, your family, your health, might be your money, your community, what they are, and actually aggressively move all 7 of those key things against those 5 laws that I put together. If you follow down this path, you're going to actually build what is going to be the next generation of how we keep and process all this information that's in front of us. If that wasn't tricky enough, I'll give you one more thing to think about, because IT is an old industry. Any geneticists in the room? Bioengineers? Enthusiasts? Okay. Yeah. Okay.